You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the October 7th meeting for the Long Beach Budget and Finance Committee. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Welcome to the regularly scheduled October Budget and Finance meeting. We are holding this meeting prior to the council meeting that is on Monday, the 13th. And it's following the council workshop we had a few days ago last week. And our agenda begins with monthly financial statements, which I owe to council. So bank recs are completed. The cash allocation report was clean and looked good. So I will send those out prior to Monday. I should probably send them today or tomorrow. So I'm going to make a note that I need to do that. And no outstanding items on that I have to report on. I guess projections we had through August, the last ones. So
Right, and if your September bank recs are done, we can get those finished for you before the meeting.
okay. Yes, so financials to come in the next day to 3, depending how long projections take. The capital plan we discussed at that workshop at length. I think we have 1 or 2 items, possibly removing that future expense of the boat that will come off. I had been alerted that some of our formulas needed to be just our totals. So those were fixed on the copy that was given to council at that meeting. And then I will just update and resend for next month following the closing of the CCMG project. So our final bill then will be included and it will look nice and clean for where we end up with that project. So any CCMG info, Mark, that we need to be aware of?
As we previously stated, the current CCMG project came in $81,000 under budget. You'll see the final pay application number 4 at next week, Monday's meeting. And then also there is change order number 2 that'll be before the council, which pretty much classifies the reduction in the contract price. And that just needs approval from the council so that we can move forward with the Indiana Department of Transportation and closing out the CCMG grant. But everything was very successful and we are very pleased on the outcome of this year's paving project.
And then I will just be careful of sending back the balance owed back to the state. So. Correct?
Yeah, you can talk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, okay.
And we will be receiving a letter from Reith Riley extending the warranty on some of the, I guess, what substrate material they use, some of the gravel. Upon review and testing by our construction management team with Haas Engineering, they felt that it was subgrade. So therefore, Reith Riley has volunteered to extend the warranty that we were in agreement with to meet the terms of the contract as well.
Great. Okay, and then Lakeshore Drive Sewer Project. Again, no update, but we like to leave that on here so it stays, not forgotten, which it won't be. Capital assets review. That is what I've got to get completed for the AFR reporting. So we have a file that's started. I did put in the land last week, so that's another step on one of the tabs. But yes, we have some work to do on that. This would be our first year completing it correctly in the AFR, which was a requirement of the audit. We are not alone. I believe many municipalities were not doing that, but the state is wanting it done. So that also will just stay on here as we get that completed heading into the end of this year and reporting on it in the new year.
Meg,
Water-
I'll be sending you an updated list. I'm working with the insurance company currently to upgrade the inventory on all of our major items, vehicles, trailers, adding the new fire truck as soon as I get the VIN number as well. We'll have that added, and then I'll share that with you for our upcoming insurance renewal. I received those documents on Friday and hope to have that back to them this week once everything is completed. So I just want to verify with street and water that we have everything covered.
Wonderful, thanks. And I guess,
Do you hear reverberation from your mic or no? Does anyone else hear that? Or I thought I heard something the other day.
We,
when I was Here.
this morning, there was an equipment malfunction. Paul was in to take a look at it with me, and we've put a call into Advanced Communications because the
Okay.
whole system was down this morning. So we had a power outage yesterday, so I think something is
Okay,
kind of off in the system right now.
all right.
one more item on the capital asset inventory. Also following the audit, I believe we need to work on that, a capital asset threshold policy.
The ordinance just needs
The
updated.
ordinance, yeah,
So
so,
we'll get that situated with you.
yep. So I'm making a note on that as well as we continue to work on post-audit items. Okay, and then on to the water rate study. And our goal plan was to have the study that Trista and Sender and Company has worked on for us to be at least discussed a little bit at this October meeting for first reading at November, second reading in December, and then new rates implemented in January, if that's still our thought on the timeline. So,
So I wanted to share a little bit of information with you today to add a little bit more feedback, so that in the packet we can have a document that's more updated with less yellow than what you have. This is a 2-page document, which would be the last 2 pages I think that Meg handed you. We use this to help estimate what future revenues and expenses will look like moving forward to help determine then what a rate increase would be if it's required. And there's a few talking points I wanted to go through today with you, so we can move this forward. The receipts, as you see, are at the top of the first full page. Then disbursements, of course, below that. They're based off of year end of 2024 because that's the most recent complete year we have. The adjustment column then goes through and takes into account various wage increases if there was one in 25 and if there would be one for 26, as well as some increases for inflation along the way, possibly some adjustments downward if an expense really is not used as much as it had been budgeted in the past, so on and so forth. At the bottom then of page 2, which is kind of a half page, you'll see that this current list projects out $141,000 deficit, $141,000 deficit. So coming back to the kind of the yellow spots today, you'll see that the metered sales in receipts, the title is yellow, and that current value for 26 is still the same, $263,730. We keep it the same in this particular column so that we do end up with a deficit if there is one at the end. The next page of the report then would show how we would increase metered sales, for example, to then come into a positive cash flow. So right now, that's okay the way that that is. You'll notice that the local cap charge revenue is a yellow 0 in the pro forma 2026 column. You'll also note that there is no expense for bond payment in the expenses toward the bottom. So there's a net zero there. And the reason that right now the local cap charge revenue is a zero is because we've had conversation about the fact that that title is what the residents are used to seeing in relation specifically to the SRF bond. And so we've talked about kind of reorganizing a little bit, but still including some revenue to build up capital cash balance for future projects. The base charge then is also highlighted, and that notation, 29 plus 10, came out of an earlier meeting with water department staff on when we are looking to repurpose how the charges are a little bit. Is there anything about the base charge that we need to address? And if so, do we simply add some capital charge to that? Or keep them distinguishably separate? So that is one area I want to come back to today to have some conversation on. I wanted to point out that the health insurance is in yellow simply because we want to make sure that the water department continues to pay for the full and true wage-related and benefits of the employees. It's in yellow because right now, going into 26, we only still just have an estimate. We don't have the true final cost yet from the health insurance company. One point to note very quickly is that at the end of the 12/31/2024 column on the half page, you'll see that there was a $262,000 shortfall. However, that simply just demonstrates that your Lakeshore Drive water improvements, which is the third item on the list, the $672,000 was a large single one-time expense. We knew that was the case. The council at that time had actively decided that the cash balance would cover that project, and so the project was approved. I don't want you to think that you had a lack of revenue collection that year. It simply was the cash flow calculation. You'll see in the adjustment column then in the middle that that water improvement cost does not carry through into this next year. We've talked in the capital planning document separately about water improvements, but that will be handled separately outside of this rate study. It will be accounted for differently in the future. So I guess some direction I need then is moving forward. I think everyone agrees that building some capital improvement related cash balance is important. Do you want it to be called the same exact thing, local capital charge? Or do you want it to be called something different? Do you think it matters to the residents to show that distinction or not? And then secondly, in regard to metered sales versus base charge, is there anything in that area? And Meg, I think you can speak to some of this, Mark, maybe a little bit too. Is there anything between those two that you suggest different based on how Michigan City is charging? I do want to point out one other item. I should have yellowed it before I turn the mic over. On page 1 in the disbursements, halfway down, just bottom of half, you see purchased water, 234,000 in the 2024 column, 234,780. I've included an adjustment for almost 47,000 for the 26 value to be 281,736. That's a 20% increase. It's a pure guess based on this very small amount of information that Greg's collected from the Michigan City Water Department. So that 20% increase is built into this current cash flow. We have no idea if it will be that high. We have no idea when it actually will be implemented. So it's also an option that right now we levelize that expense, show no increase, instead only raise rates for the current operating costs. And then be prepared in January or February, or whenever Michigan City does have a secondary increase due to the true rates that are being passed on. So now I think I'm done talking for a little bit.
So removing that 46,000 brings our deficit even higher for 26, correct?
Brings it lower to 100 or 95.
Because we're saying we're adjusting. Okay.
If we levelized the water cost and took that expense back out, made it a zero adjustment.
Oh, because that's increasing. Got it. Okay. Well, so talking, kind of wish Greg was here. I guess back when this was set up years ago, or whenever we got Civic, according to the water department, other places do make up for it in their, I guess, in their base charge. Is that where they
Make up for what?
do make up? As in they charge higher in the water charges as opposed to us doing it separately as capital. So per Greg, with
Oh.
our water being so low, the cost of it, that we are unlike other places. I guess I don't know the right answer on changing the whole way we do it and recouping these costs in that water. I guess, how do we determine that? What's the best?
It's just preference. If you want the residents to see the true base charge and then separately know that this amount is going to future capital projects to start a good saving plan, to have cash available for future projects and potentially,
Last I spoke with Greg and Diane in Austin, we'd thought to keep it separate because it's a good way to explain it to residents. You know, it's the debt charge is $22 and change. I have that with me actually. Let's say we could bring it down to $10 or $8, $5 for that capital charge based on the study. And not forgetting that we will be increasing due to Michigan City, so that will be passed on to residents. That was kind of our last, what we thought. But keeping in mind that Greg does say that isn't how most places do it, from what their auditors tell them. And do we care? I don't know.
I think the Lakeshore Drive project, Meg, when you look back on that just shy of $700,000 project that we did a little over a year ago, is a clear example of some of the capital improvements that the water department, has done and will continue to do. The residents are used to seeing the capital charge on the water bill now. In talking to Greg, I would agree that I would recommend that we keep the capital charge on there, explaining to the residents that that is for, future improvements. For example, next year along Oriole Trail, to put in the valves along Oriole Trail, the purpose of that is going to be isolating any type of water service interruption where all of Oriole Trail will not have to be shut down. That residents can understand that only a certain segment that's affected by the water leak, not the entire length of a certain roadway. So there's a lot of improvements they want to do in the upcoming years. And we can only do that if we maintain some capital reserve. And I just think that's a good way to explain it to them.
I think keeping it separate makes it a little bit cleaner in our accounting system as well. It's a little easier to
track.
actually see what we have for capital instead of having to figure it out.
it would also allow you to adjust the base and the metered sales in proportion to Michigan City's increase when that finally happens.
I mean, I'm looking at my most current bill, which, I just look at the bottom line really. It's it shows you the units previous and current, then the base charge, then the local capital charge, fire protection, tax. And then it gives you, the town of Long Beach charges, refuse, leaf, and then stormwater. So it's, I don't know, why switch it up? I mean, how many people, and then like you said, then if the base charge changes, then that's easy to change.
Mhm.
So why switch it? I don't know how many people call and ask questions about it. I think I just kind of pay it. And I mean, a few years ago, my bill was the same, like the third month, and that's when I called the water department and said, why? Like, but otherwise.
Guess
I
the
just
other
pay it.
part to this is when we take our count in the study, that count I just gave you of 1240 residents, that's, I don't know if that includes the vacant lots. So currently vacant lots, as we discussed at the workshop, they pay for fire protection, stormwater, and leaf.
Which I believe that number does because you gave me 1237 to use for leaf.
For leaf,
So
1237.
as opposed to like 1,037 is what trash is.
trash is. Mhm.
Right, so if we keep that count, which includes vacant lots, so any parcel, then, and they pay that capital charge, which is no longer for debt service, it's just a straight up capital charge, that spreads it among all parcels. So that everybody understands that.
So we have 1240 for vacant lots, fire, stormwater.
Well,
leaf, or-
that was the number from the county.
Okay.
I need to look what we actually
Approximate.
charge in our system, which I do have that number. I think Mark, the number Mark just gave is, it should be at
1237.
1237. So that's right. That's good news that it's kind of on track. For 24, the county said it was 1250. So just in 1 year, we've lost 10 parcels to whether a property, a house was torn
Builders.
down and not built on yet, or won't be built on, or the combining of lots. Yellow Bear Farms is going to affect this because of that entire peninsula. So if they decided to, which I believe they can legally do, but, and maybe I'm getting too deep into this, but, I think this mattered more for the debt. I don't think it was anticipated over 20 years how much the lot lines would change, but for capital, we're just gonna have to take our number as lots are combined, and we just, their bills get updated.
But wouldn't our trash, so you said our trash numbers are 1037?
Around 1040.
So wouldn't those numbers go up then if our, oh no, I guess
Trash
they
is
wouldn't,
different.
never mind,
Trash
sorry.
is you call, you
Right,
say
no,
that
I know,
you're.
right, they would include,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
So I think Meg, the council is just going to need some guidance on what we recommend to do with that capital as far as, the amount moving forward.
Mhm.
So.
So,
And I can, while he's walking over, in some of this documentation can provide a list of identified capital projects, which would then relate to a couple different levels maybe of capital charge to include, knowing that if you need to do a project in a couple years and you don't have enough cash, that becomes a financing situation. And that's just a trade-off that would happen.
One way to look at that capital charge too, as far as vacant lots, if the infrastructure for the whole town is improved and a guy's got a much bigger piece of property, I don't think it's disingenuous to say you should be contributing a little more than a guy with a single lot for that capital improvement because you're going to enjoy that through your property. If he decides to subdivide that lot 10 years from now, that ability to hook up to this system and whatever improvements go on, such as the valves and those sorts of things, benefit that lot. So I don't think you have to make a big excuse about that. I think that's.
no, I think it's more just a recommendation from Budget and Finance to council within.
Yeah, that's just my opinion. I mean, whatever the council decides, but it seems to me like that's not a bad narrative for continuing to charge the way you're charging now for the capital.
Well, we are not currently charging it on vacant lots. So this will be a change. Vacant lots only pay fire, stormwater, and leaf. So back in
But if
23,
a-
when that vacant lot, the water charges, so the base and clearly use is not happening if if somebody's not using water on a parcel. But those water fees came off of vacant lots. So.
Are we differentiating vacant lots from a combined lot? Because if a vacant lot is available to be developed, then it's not the same as a combined lot.
Not differentiating that right
Yeah,
now.
that's a problem.
Well, we need to. We
If some-
discussed doing an audit of, but also our language needs to follow what we're gonna do. And if we don't have this figured out in time, then it's gonna affect this.
I mean, I think there's a difference between a vacant lot that's buildable, that's non-developed currently, and a combined lot for somebody that has multiple lots.
Well, people have combined lots that might be multiple. People own 10 separate lots, no matter their size. You know, as we sort of touched on in the workshop, that language of improved versus unimproved. Also, if you are connected to / using. So, I mean, that's a project to try and audit our vacant lots. I know that there's 152 of them currently.
How hard would it be to figure out if you had, of those 152,
I think it would be the water department driving around and
I think it'd be worth the effort, because if a guy has a buildable lot, even though it's not developed currently, but he's going to have that lot as an asset, potentially developable, then they should be contributing, in my estimation, for the long-term development of the system. If somebody has combined lots and they don't ever, you know, and they're not using any more water than one service, and those lots are combined for the purposes of making one piece of property.
well, a vacant lot is not using any water.
Right.
Any vacant lot.
Right.
So if we want to decipher whether they're buildable or not, or if they, I guess, improved or unimproved. And does that mean a hookup or not? So do you have a water meter that's already installed? So that if you contribute to capital for 10 years and then you decide to, you know, any of those situations of changing lot lines or tearing down and rebuilding, making it bigger or smaller.
But if you have a piece of,
Do we care?
if you
the
have a
lot
piece
is
of-
Not 12,000 square.
right,
feet?
but if you have a piece of property in town,
Mhm.
you've made an investment in that lot. If it's contiguous and you've got it combined with your property, I would consider that one property. If you have made investments to just own some vacant lots, those vacant lots are potentially developable over time.
Those are the lots that we're saying should pay for
The capital, I agree.
But we're not distinguishing whether it's a 6,000 square foot lot or a 12,000 square foot lot. 6,000 is not buildable under the code. 12,000 is.
Yeah, well then, if we can do that, if we can separate those out, that's probably a benefit, but that's going to be a project, you're saying.
Even if you don't, you're already receiving value from purchasing this property in the town, right? So every year that the property appreciates, they're receiving benefit for that. And if they are in town, I agree that you have to pay to have the opportunity to be able to look up whether you're doing it or not.
Because you're gaining the benefit of that system.
And we,
You traverse that lot, in front of the road, right, in the road, public access way, to get the water from the house on the left side of the house to the right side of the vacant lot. There's a cost in running that pipe.
We're going to beat you up to go up and talk better than Mike.
Or you can
I
still-
will.
Snag that microphone right there if you want, but, okay.
right, so we also can't control per LaPorte County in that example I gave of a property across the street being allowed to be combined. So that's a parcel we've now lost to these fees for town planning. We can't really control what LaPorte County is going to allow property owners to do with their parcels. So,
I think that's fair.
yeah.
I think that's fair because you're going to capture
benefit of, say, the landscaping, the ability to landscape that property and water the grass across all of those lots, whether if it's combined or not. And so you're going to capture, at least, I think from what I understand, the metered sales of the water that would be spent if we were to combine lots, which is what I did at 2948 Mount Clair when I bought. It was 3 separate lots and I combined them as one. And so I agree that I don't think there are going to be some lots that fall off if you combine them.
They are no longer vacant then.
Yeah.
They are
But they're not
combined
going
as
to,
your homestead.
correct.
property,
But they're
right?
not going to have multiple units on they become, you can't build separately.
Well, and those ones would only pay one capital charge. So on your homestead property, if you've combined for tax purposes to avoid fees like this, you wouldn't pay, you would just pay the one time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
These vacant lots,
You may,
if we implement this fee, would that cause somebody to combine or sell?
well, yes, you're going to incentivize people to say, oh, okay, now if I have to pay 3 water bills and I have 3 lots right next to each other, well, I'm gonna combine them.
But it's not water, it's just the capital. So it's these
Fire,
certain
storm, water, leak.
fees. So the crux of it is, I think we all agree, if you own property, we think that everyone should contribute towards capital. The difference is on whether your vacant parcel is buildable or not, and or whether it has a meter hooked up to it already, where you could build and hook right into the system and I guess I don't know all the different variations of vacant lots that we have. Now, keep in mind, I guess I don't know if the 152 includes town vacant lots, which is in the ballpark of 60. So does
I
that
would
really
think
only mean?
the guy that went across Lake Shore or whatever, that's a one-off. I wouldn't design your policy.
It
around
is
one-offs.
until 10 more decide.
Well,
to
they
do it.
may, but
And
right
and
now
again,
that's
if
a,
the court's allowing it, we can't, I don't know. I need to research that and see if Michigan City set the precedent down Lakeshore Drive is what this person I spoke with thought, but she really wasn't sure.
But I do think that you, as an individual autonomous town, can make your own definition on something like that, being a non-contiguous combined property, and have a specific definition in your ordinance for that.
Yeah, so that's one thing, but back to size of lot. And is our recommendation that we perform an audit to see that your lot is buildable or not? Or do we go with you own property in the town, so you therefore contribute to capital?
I would start with the latter and see what the response is.
Well, and it's gonna vary.
But
There's going to be some, there's homeowners that own numerous properties who would have to pay more than somebody that owns one. So,
But if a fire starts on a 6,000 square foot lot versus a 12,000 square
so
foot
this
lot,
isn't fire though. This is just the capital.
so
So
explain
fire,
that.
they already pay fire.
Yeah.
Those parcels, no matter the size. This
So
would
capital is
be-
just related to for future projects, is what you're referring to?
Correct. Correct.
So, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing still applies in my mind. The argument is that they're benefiting from owning within the town of Long Beach, and whether they own a lot or they own a property on a lot with a property on it, they are still benefiting
Still
from.
benefit from capital projects.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
it's
I
not
don't-
fair. It's not fair if an individual, you said 10 lots. I don't know if there's an individual that owns 10 lots, but if an individual owns 10 non-contiguous, non-combined lots, they ought to be paying, and they're not slivers, or I don't know how many non-buildable lots there are that are not combined any. I would imagine if I was in that shape,
That's what I don't think we know.
I doubt it if there are that many. I would think if you had property, you would combine them if it was a small enough lot that it would.
I do think if we have time coming up, whether this is part of the study or not, it's at least maybe prudent that we do some of this research so that we know. But in the meantime, our number is 152, and I'm making a note to check. That includes town properties.
Relative to the water increase, your guess of 46,956, Trista, and then your metered sales of the 263 from 24. I'm just wondering, so if we look at your deficit or your decrease on your pro forma 26 at the bottom, it's 140,000. If we look at your metered sales of 263 in your revenue and your purchased water for 24 of 234, you just take the 263, take the 235, unless my logic is incorrect, you're already 30,000 in the hole back in 24 from metered sales. Because that was the number I think we were all trying to get to earlier on, and I don't think we ever had a definition of it. But if I understand this correctly, then right now in 24, assuming these numbers are correct, we were 30 grand in the hole on metered sales that year.
That's a fair statement.
Yeah, which that's fairly significant. That's better than 10%. That's 12 or 14 or whatever it is.
Which is exactly why the rates need to be looked at.
Yes, but that's 24. So we've gone through 25 with at least that much of a deficit, potentially greater. So that certainly justifies the new increase that you're going to do. But my question, the corollary to that then is the 141 net receipts column in the pro forma 26. Do we need to worry about correcting that with the water increase, or what are we exactly saying with that deficit there?
So this is one tab of the whole study to then inform what the rate increase needs to be to then balance out. So later tabs will show metered sales as a separate pro forma page being larger to then come to a positive cash flow balance at the bottom.
So over and above the 30,000 that we talked about, that was a specific 2024 differential, and your 46 that you put in as your 20% guess, in order to get whole on that 141, we need to do more than that 20% jump, right? In other
Yes.
words,
Yes, depending on how, yes, directly related to the metered sales.
yeah.
Yes, you can look at it that way.
So it's not like we can just capture the 46 and make ourselves whole. We need to get more than that, right?
Right.
Okay.
So I understand the local capital charge revenue, was that for debt servicing for the fire?
For
the-
pipes under the ground, so for water infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that was from almost 20 years ago, so it's going to be ending soon.
Okay,
And
so that's why
this
it's yellow
capital
here?
Discussion is that we're going to keep possibly just the same name, but the amount is going to hopefully lessen. Yet we still accrue capital money for
So-
future projects so that we hopefully don't have to take out as much debt going forward.
Well, that seems like if the expectation is set and it's been set for years that there's a local capital charge being incurred that's generating $300,000 in receipts.
That is not on those vacant lots currently.
Yeah,
So-
but just in general, right? For the town, all residents, correct?
Well, that paid for the debt service. only.
Yes, right.
So-
But why carry this through into 2026?
We could, but we
This-
have to warrant it.
It was just demonstrated for today's worksheet
Yeah,
to show that, which is the other page I'd given you, we could reference for just a moment. This is the final cash flow from that bond
Yeah.
financing. So it was a bond taken out in 2006. SRF is a reference to a state program that provides lower interest rate bonds for infrastructure to communities related to water and sewer. And so on the left side is funding the sinking fund, meaning the debt payments twice a year. $26,000 a month on average would be transferred to BNY to be able to pay that.
Okay.
And those collectively then came in total to the 300,000 for the year. So as our cash has been building now in those funds to pay off the end of life of that debt service, I'm simply showing on today's worksheet that revenue would not continue for the purposes of this bond.
Okay.
Because we do have cash built up in those other two offsite funds.
And we can't rely on this capital charge revenue in 2026 going forward unless we can warrant it. And then what would that amount be?
Well,
Right,
right.
and we.
Yes, and we have a
made an
list of some things.
File what our capital.
This was that was what I was missing here was
Yeah.
that piece. So that makes sense. Okay.
So other pages of the rate study will demonstrate a list of things that have been discussed that are in needs in the future. Water tank, maintenance, possible replacement, all those kinds of things, Oriole Trail. And that will then inform what a new charge should be moving forward.
Okay, so what exactly, what was your last, what you need from us today?
Well, I think unless there's a major disagreement or objection, I think I've heard that we will keep a separately defined, a separately distinctly listed, wow, that's pretty redundant, capital charge on the bill, which of course you all can tie in and show the residents if asked what those projects will be in the future. The metered sales and base charge will remain separately listed as they currently are, in correlation, of course, to Michigan City charges. And the base charge then builds in the rest of the expenses that are needed for operational purposes. And that we need a little bit better definition. I think it sounds like everyone's in agreement for the vacant lots to be included in the cap charge, which I think is an important and good decision.
And I will follow up with the water department and try and understand what makes up those vacant lots a little bit better.
So I think for Monday's council meeting, we can have a draft prepared with probably a couple different options of if the capital charge would be X amount a month. It can build, toward these projects if it was Y amount per month. And that way moving into November, before you have an official first reading for a new ordinance, council members can have some time to review and have further conversation, even with this committee again. As well, then moving toward that November first reading on the rate ordinance gives you some time with Chris Willoughby to get the definitional language fixed up and ready to go. As well as in that same ordinance probably should be the guidance on customer adjustments, which are talked about separately.
Good.
So that's great. If we're ready, we can move into the conversation about raises for next year, unless you have something else.
Yes, no, let's do that. So I think all of you council members are aware that, and at the workshop, we discussed the differential between 3% and 4%. Council's been hopefully made aware of the legislation that is already having effects and will be having more effects next year and the following years. Anything you want to add? I guess we're looking for a recommendation.
Yeah, ultimately, I think it would be appropriate for the Budget Finance Committee to give a recommendation to council on what the percent of salary increase, of wage increase should be for next year's budget. We talked that the difference really between 3% and 4% boils down to about $10,000 across wages, Social Security, and potential PERF contributions. Overall, that's not a large amount of money. Overall, it's approximately 5,000 to the general fund and then 5,000 across some other miscellaneous funds, water, stormwater, garbage, for example, MVH. So I mentioned at the workshop that the current situation of the town with your healthy cash balances that you've been working on, you're not at the cliff, right? Can you afford that difference of the 10,000, yes. Should you afford it, seeing what's coming yet unknown from Senate and Overruled Act 1? Mostly probably yes. But I'm not the policymaker. And so what I can tell you is that financially, I think you'll be okay if you did it. But that does not mean necessarily that that same percentage would be available for next year at the same time, 1 year from now, until we see some better results of the circuit breaker actual calculations released in April. Not at all meant to confuse the issue, but there are some multiple clients that are waiting until April to make a decision on the raise in total, and just letting their staff know that they'll make a good solid evaluation at that time, potentially doing back pay, potentially doing a catch-up bonus, and then a raise. There's any variety of options that you have. And that's all workable through how you draft the salary ordinance. There's no problem there with going back and paying a lump sum kind of situation. Honestly, I don't even know really that you're at that point yet. Despite some of the uncertainty downstate, again, just with the understanding that we don't know if next year, it will be that same percent. Do you maybe only give 3% this year to, in effect, quote, save that percentage, that single percentage as a start for next year? Potentially.
What have our raises been in the past? Do you remember, either one of you? I tried calling Cindy earlier.
4% for this year, 3%, I believe, the year before, Meg. Is that correct?
I think so. Was the growth 2 years ago also?
Yeah.
I guess 23, I wouldn't have. So I guess I don't know.
I'm sorry, I should have looked that up before we came in. That would have been a good, thoughtful data to have for you. I'm having some connection problems with our VPN, but I'll work on trying to pull that up.
One of the things we were doing is we were trying to play a little catch up when we did some comparisons to some of the surrounding municipalities and that. And as the town administrator, I'll advocate on behalf of our town employees that, weekly we see the compliments that come in from the staff that we do employ with the town. I interact with the employees, daily weekly for certain, almost daily with most of them. I've received some feedback from them that they've asked me to share with all of you as you consider this moving forward. They have asked me to advocate for them that if we, the town, feel that we can do the 4% this year, they would ask that we show them the consideration and do that for them, and they'd be very appreciative of that. However, they do understand as well, what's to come in the future and some of the unknowns as well, that the raises may not be as much in future years to come. So on behalf of the employees, just some of the feedback I've received from all the departments, we have a couple of police officers that are now into their second year here with the town. As you know, we've hired some very young deputies in recent years. They're now in their second year of employment, and they've yet to receive a raise because they're still working off of their initial offer that we gave them when we had hired them. So again, I'm just sharing the concerns that they have. They would be very appreciative of either 3 or 4%, and they understand, what the town faces and the council faces as well moving forward. So yeah, just wanted to share that from the employees.
Not that I trust the internet for everything, but if you pop up national averages, it's between 3 and 5 across the board, pretty much across the country. So I don't think either one of those numbers is too far off the averages. We did equalize because of the public safety lit tax that came in and the fact that an awful lot of agencies were losing officers to surrounding counties. LaPorte County introduced that lit tax. We did use quite a bit of that to get our officers closer to where we thought they should be, in addition to some of those one-offs that we did with some street department personnel and then office personnel as well. So hopefully we haven't drifted too far from the averages. Our old statement of purpose was, let's try not to be below average. Let's not even try to be average. Let's try to be a little above average. So in light of that, I mean, I think you could justify the 4, but I do think you're going to have some realities to face in the future years. But I think, either one of those numbers, you could split it in half and go 3.5 if you want to be crazy about it. But
One of the examples, I reached out to the police chief in the town of Chesterton last Friday. We had met. Town of Chesterton, a little bit bigger than obviously the town of Long Beach. They currently have 2 openings that any one of our deputies could leave here and apply for the town of Chesterton. Town of Chesterton currently starts their starting deputies at $72,000. Our 2 least senior deputies here are currently making $64,000. So that's one of my concerns on the police side is, yes, we keep them very happy, but the farther we fall behind, the more attractive other towns become to some of them that, they could move on to another agency. I hate to see that. So just sharing that. And I don't know what Chesterton's giving for a raise. I did ask, and they are still in their negotiations as well. They have yet to decide. So.
If this was my business and they were my employees, of which I have both, and the difference was between $10,000, and given the budget that we have and the revenues, it doesn't move the needle. And for goodwill, for employee retention, if it's a question of raise or no raise, that's one thing. But if it's a question of 3% to 4%, and we're talking about $10,000, to me, it's a no-brainer.
I was thinking about it last night too, and it's like, okay, do you go 3.5? I mean, it's ridiculous to rewrite all the numbers again in April, right? I mean, or say, okay, now let's spend time figuring out a bonus, or now let's spend time figuring out, I don't know. I was present for the council meetings when John was on the council, and the time spent on figuring out who were the outliers, who was this, who was that. And some people seem to be more protected than other people by, some people. It was craziness. And I think, people have done a good job of, there's a lot of professionalism all across the board. Including, Chief, what you said, bringing people in, but that doesn't mean that they won't go somewhere if they have families or somewhere to live for $8,000, $10,000, it matters. So, I've been listening to all the, Cliff stories, but, for $10,000, I've kind of been sticking with 3, but I have to say, just listening, I think that there are probably other ways that we can make up $10,000. I'm hopeful. So
I think we should do the 4%. This conversation reminds me of when we were talking about the employee benefits conversation. When we have good people, we want to keep good people. We want to show our employees that we appreciate them. And I'm a huge proponent, small business owner as well. I want to make sure that we take care of the people who take care of us and take care of our citizens. So I think that we should do the 4%, and it's $10,000. I think that we can find other places if we need to find it. So I think the 4% is what we should do. So that's my 2 cents.
I would also like to advocate, because on a daily basis, I work extremely close with her, our clerk treasurer, that she be included in this, or at least for the council to give consideration to that. Although an elected official, again, I'm just advocating that she puts in the hours. I see how much more my life has changed here in my role at the town, that my schedule and my work has become so much more enjoyable. So I would ask that you consider, Meg Collins be at least considered for something in this as well. So please consider that as the council moves forward as well.
And I will advocate the town council will be happy to continue working for our wages and
Yeah.
let the town
Yes.
use that money as they see
Elsewhere.
fit. But maybe in April, there might be a reconsideration.
Like I told Joy, no parole. So please-
Well,
the
Joy's
hook.
in for the long haul.
I'm happy and with my bump I had, I would almost rather see it go their way.
No, I'd go for it. I just want to, make it
About it.
part of the public record that maybe when we see it, the cliff, if we're climbing up the cliff, maybe someone will throw us a bone. Just saying. I mean, I do have 2 dogs to support.
In all seriousness, note, to Colleen's comments and to everybody's comments today, I will tell you that our employees do watch these meetings because I do hear the feedback from them. I watched the HR meeting last week. I watched the budget and finance meeting. So when we do make these, positive comments and we're, giving applause to our employees, they appreciate that. And it does come back through the channels. So I want all of you to understand that, they do appreciate all the good things that you say and the support that you give them. So it means a lot to them. And I think it makes work enjoyable when they know they're coming to a town that appreciates them every day. That's where it comes to that, retaining good people is when we have meetings like this and we're productive and talk positive towards our employees.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
So Trista, quick question. If we prepare Form 4 with 4%, we've got 2 council members who are here today, and I believe we have correct, and I guess we will talk with Joy. If we prepared Form 4 with 4% and council landed on 3% at the meeting, I guess I just go back in the next day, amend, reprint, and get their signatures? Is
We-
that the worst case scenario?
Well, you could just hand adjust the total for the funds that would be affected on the Form 4. They still sign that as the original and we upload that anyway, and then input into Gateway the final total in the forms that are provided there.
Any other info or questions from us while we have the committee? Questions, anybody, comments? Okay. Got a lot to prepare for Monday, and then it's just going to be a busy through the year end, I believe. So Tristan, just a reminder, we had a deadline for our action plans for some of the repeat audit comments, and that deadline is mid-December. So we are plugging away at doing what we need to in Gateway to appease the auditors and to try and get us to the best place we can be with our procedures. And, it's going well. So I'll keep you updated as we move along.
Meg, you have 2 on Zoom. I didn't know if you wanted any public comment at all, but you do have 2.
Are there any public comments from anybody on Zoom? Thank you. And
Audience.
I guess, yes, audience, I think we did that, but Joe. Okay, then I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn at 12:04.
I'll second it.